Hey, how's it going, guys? Ancient Reed here, back with another Wonderlands build video, and today I will be going over my new DREADWIND build using Frost-Shivver called SPIN2WIN. This uses Blood of the Fallen to get a super long DREADWIND duration. This will have less damage than going Alchemical Agent, unfortunately, but I wanted to have DREADWIND out longer than kind of like just having DREADWIND on the side and actually meleeing the main part. So that's why I go Blood of the Fallen. Not going Alchemical Agent means weaker bossing, but mobbing is still really fun. The save file will be found in my Discord, that'll be linked below. You can also find there my Twitch, where I stream Wonderlands and a bunch of other games often. And if you like this build, make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't, and I hope you guys enjoy. Alright, and for the gear here, first we have a live wire with spellcast melee. This is for outside of DREADWIND damage. This will create a chain that's based off of our melee hit, and it's very strong and very good. The chaos tier in the parts don't matter, which makes this an easy farm because it doesn't do anything based off the damage of the item and only your melee weapon. So this is just find any live wire and you're good. And then we have a Spriggan. You can also use a Kobold. These are Hyperius SMGs, which have a 40% melee blade. Now we use this over the COV version, the Rapscallion, because we use shell casing rings based off of how low our ammo is in our gun. And we can do that with Hyperius guns, but you can't with a Skulldugger. You can also have the live wire at low ammo, so you can have this for both. And then we go with action skill start melee damage, just because I'm only using this really when I activate my action skill instead of like my live wire where I'm only using this outside of my action skill. And so that just makes this 10% more damage better, and it's the same duration. But if you get spellcast melee instead of action skill start melee damage, it doesn't matter too much since you activate your spell anyways before starting. So it doesn't really matter there. Then we use a stabbomancer for ranged melee and for save your soul for far away enemies. If you can't hit an enemy, this will save your life. The parts don't matter too much, but they do a bit, like higher damage is of course going to give you more damage output. You still want to try and get the highest chaos tier, but you can get like ×7 or ×14. It doesn't matter too much. I like ×7 because it saves ammo and you have less reloading. But ×14 will still do fine for you. I like having spellcast melee on this. I do not have it on this gun, but that is what I would use. And then we have a Tooth Raider. Now the parts do not matter on this and the chaos tier because the parts are locked, and this is purely for utility. We use this for bossing. You will shoot it a few times at the boss for the crossbows. These crossbows are a pure molt to our melee damage, and then you'll swap to your Kobold and or Spriggan like I have, and then you'll just activate DREADWIND and you'll do more damage. Now I don't usually have anything for crossbows, but you can with guns with swings. I have some here from old testing. The enchant doesn't matter in here, nor really does the chaos tier. I'd say chaos tier would matter if you went frost to try and help with icebreaker uptime, but that's really all. You want ×2 ideally. You could throw a couple of these and then swap to your Spriggan and then do your axe skill. This is for mobbing, not bossing like the Tooth Raider. I'd probably swap it with the stabbomancer. You do lose that ranged option, but I don't want to give up any of these. You could swap out the Tooth Raider and then like not use it and just the Fear Not, or just swap to it whenever you boss, but I prefer not to swap that much. And then for our melee weapon, we use the Banshee. This is the highest base damage weapon. And also you can find a high damage greatsword. I don't know if I have one, I do not. But that'll also work because that also has really high base damage. So DREADWIND gets your base melee damage, your element of your melee weapon, and the crit chance and crit damage. So that's why we don't go like when we go Ghostblade, we go a high DPS weapon, which is damage per second, which takes in the swing speed. And then also takes in crit chance and crit damage, but that doesn't really matter too much here because we want that high base damage. That's also kind of makes this a little easier because the crit not the crit, the element doesn't matter too much. This, you just kind of want to find an element you like. I like using fire because there's common flesh bar enemies, but if you're using soaked in this, which is an option, then you'd want a frost or lightning. And then of course, if you have like a tough armored bar enemy, you'd want to use this. I usually only swap elements of this when I'm bossing. When I'm mobbing, fire does just fine. You want to use this 50% damage when using Feral Surge or Dreadwind against bosses and badasses. When using Dreadwind, this is a pure molt. With using Feral Surge, this is conditional damage. Kind of weird how it's different, but that's just kind of how it works. You get really good damage out of this. We don't go the consecutive hits because one, this is also pure molt, and I think this would consecutive hits would be a pure mode in this, but you really only need this damage against bosses and badasses, and lower mobs won't need this extra damage. It'll be active longer than consecutive hits because we're going to be going around in Dreadwind for a long time. Now, I like using the warrior hilt mod, but it doesn't matter too much, mainly besides vampire, which you don't want to use if you use a cursed wit, but if you use like a body rune, then vampire is fine. And also Banshee can sometimes not spawn with a hilt mod, but I like using warrior because it's more melee damage. I just whack through enemies a couple times to build up warrior, and then I go Dreadwinding around. It won't be active the whole Dreadwind if I take the whole Dreadwind out until it goes off, but it's still good damage and good for outside of Dreadwind damage as well. I use Cursed Wit here for the conditional damage. The conditional damage would be really nice. We do have a good amount of conditional damage, but when I was kind of looking at all my bonuses, getting more conditional damage is still really good outside of other options. That other option is the body rune. Static charge can also work for just shield and health tanking, but I like having either these two. Body rune helps with health survivability, and then also has a nice bonus element unless you're using soaked, and then it kind of becomes worse since it's fire. But the bonus element's still really nice, and I actually use it sometimes just for the bonus element. Here we go, the Dreadwind enchant for the ward. This is ward only, with the damage shell and move speed. Since we're going to be out Dreadwinding for a long time, this will get good stacks, and then this will also last, it says, for 10 seconds. The move speed lasts for 10 seconds after Dreadwind ends, which will be very nice for us. The move speed will go into Amnesia, but the damage style is also additive to Amnesia, but it's still damage, so we'll take it. The parts you'd want on a Cursed Wit is Fleet or Roid, but it doesn't matter too much. And then I go Ascended, which is a Chaos tier, instead of going no Chaos tier, which would make it break easier, because I want to get more capacity into unarmored defense, so I have more health for better healing and tanking from max health HP, which I do have here. And for the amulet here, I like to go Escape for survivability with Amnesia, since Amnesia can really take down your health sometimes. But any amulet will work, even a purple one. You just mainly want to find Berserker Power, which will boost Dreadwind, and then matching the element of your main melee weapon. I have fire, so I have fire bonus here, and then if you get some all damage, that's really nice. But since we already have so much global damage, which is all damage here, it doesn't really matter too much, but it's still a good amount. And other passives don't matter much. Status effect damage doesn't matter since we're not going alchemical agent, so dots aren't doing anything. Reload speed and mag size can be nice, but not needed, and only for some niche things. And so that's why I go all damage. And then the Skeep amulet is just kind of optimal, it feels like. I've tried going through different things, but nothing really helped. Slip and Stun can be nice for out of Dreadwind stuff, but definitely not optimal. Just having that Skeep here will really help. Protagonizer does nothing, if anyone's wondering, because Dreadwind only gets ability damage and not crit chance and crit damage, so that's why Protagonizer does nothing here. And then for the spell, we go Fortifying Sigil. This is for survivability, and we get some damage out of it. It's more all damage or global damage, whatever you like to call it. I like to have it with radius and cooldown parts. That is like the only things that'll help you here. I go radius because I don't need to spam my spell too much, so the long cooldown doesn't matter. But it does mean I don't really have my spell active as much when outside of Dreadwind, and that's when more cooldown will help there. I use the spell cast, melee, and damage, and then the chaos tier doesn't matter since we're not using this for damage. And then for the enchant, I go spellcast, melee damage, and knockback because this is conditional damage, and it's only consumed on your next melee attack, which means melee swing, but it still will boost melee damage. So if you swing your melee, this 40% conditional damage is used, but if you use like Dreadwind or Ghostblade or Executioner's Blade, those types of melee, and Stabbomancer, it won't be used, and it will just go until that duration is up, which makes this really, really good for Dreadwind. This does mean some less damage outside of Dreadwind, but it's worth it because you kill faster. And then you can also use an empowering sigil if you want to. I may have one. Yes, I do. Just with some radius and cooldown parts, but it also won't be active that long and has a lower duration than fortifying sigil. It will freeze enemies, which can be nice if you use up Frost one, but I still don't go it. But it also could be better for outside of Dreadwind damage because you can actually spam the spell more. So you can just, if you have two of those sigils, just mess around with what you like, or if you have one or the other, just use that one. And then here we use the Selective Amnesia for our armor. We have a lot of move speed, so Selective Amnesia is kind of the go-to, and it can be pretty easy to get hit since we have melee. So we'll have Amnesia proccing often, and so that move speed, it just gives us a really good amount of damage. Cape of Tides and Amalgam can also work really well, but Amnesia also helps keep down the Cursed Wit, which is something I really like with this combo. It can be risky, but I like to take that sacrifice because conditional damage from Cursed Wit does go into Amnesia. But we have some good damage reduction, and that's why I go Pointed Old Ways, not just because it gives conditional damage, which is really good here, but it also gives damage reduction, which will help lower that dot sum. We are raising our damage, we're also lowering it overall. Obviously, you're not going to find a +5 good parted Berserker Stabbo combo with Selective Amnesia. So here's some options for this combo. We have Old Ways and Iron Skull that are really good. Pretty sure the third option is Follow-Up, but that's not good here at all. So we have Old Ways and Iron Skull. Iron Skull helps your DPS outside of Dreadwind, which still makes it very good, but it just prefers what you want. I really like Iron Skull and having a fast-looking weapon, but I also want more damage in Dreadwind, so I go full Old Ways. Now, if you're wondering how I have this, it's save edited. Most of my gear is save edited for all my builds, just because I don't really like farming in this game, but it's whatever. Now, the ideal passives you want are area damage and move speed, and then like for your third passives or just other passives to look out for are melee crit chance, melee damage, all damage, and ability damage. They're all really good passives, but I prefer using melee crit chance here just for some higher crit damage because critting more is more damage. And then here we use a shell casing ring because we can take advantage of emptying these mags and not needing to shoot at all, and so they're always low mag, which means we always get this bonus in and out of Dreadwind, which is really, really nice. We go ability damage here because we don't have as much ability as we do melee damage, but either or will work because of farming is tough in this game and you can't pick and choose. And so that's also why you don't need shell casing ring, but I like showing optimal stuff because that's just what I like doing with my builds, is showing optimal. The passive you want is between melee crit damage and crit chance. Of course, crit damage is more damage, but crit chance can help you crit more, which is really, really good. I like going some action skill duration just to have even longer Dreadwind, and action skill cooldown can also be nice. Those are the four to look for: melee crit damage, melee crit chance, action skill duration, and action skill cooldown. Any of those combos will be really nice. Fine. And then I mentioned some of this before, but DREADWIND gets your melee weapon base damage. It says here 45% melee weapon. And then it says melee frequency, which is like every time you swing, is 0.25 seconds. That means you get 4 swings per second, which makes it really good and makes it so you don't have to worry about DPS and only high base damage. And it also gives some move speed, which is really nice. It also slow immunity, which is very awesome, so you don't get slowed at all, which happens with Amnesia and Rage of the Ancients. So that's amazing to have. It gets your melee crit chance and crit damage, and then it also gets ability damage, area damage, and just your whole melee damage formula with global damage, conditional damage, the crit stuff, as I said. It's all in damage formula doc, which I always link in my videos, so you can check there if you want to see it better. And then for our skill tree, we go Burr Stabbo, because Burr is DREADWIND, and then Stabbo for our secondary, purely for Exploit Their Weakness, which is a pure moat here, and it's only additive with Wrath of Nature, which we can't get, and it won't proc from here because it on hit DREADWIND is melee damage, even though it gets boosted by ability damage. So Wrath of Nature does nothing for that. So we go Exploit Their Weakness, and it's also really nice because we get some move speed and melee swing speed, and then some crit chance from Dirty Fighting. So that just kind of adds to it, but there's nothing else we go here which we want, so there's no reason to go further. So we overspec Berserker. We go basic melee stuff here. Blood Frenzy I don't think is really needed, but it can be really nice. You don't need max savagery either. You can put some at instinct if you want to use strikes more. The guns with wings, that reload speed and swap speed will help a lot. And then we go Iron Skull. This is just because I really like swing speed, and this helps DPS outside of DREADWIND, which can be very important sometimes, especially bossing when DREADWIND can't always kill a boss right away, especially at Chaos 100. So that's why we go Iron Skull here. And then of course Blood of the Fallen will return our action skill duration while it's up, and while our action skill is down, it'll restore action skill cooldown whenever we kill an enemy, which makes this really fun in a very long DREADWIND, which we can't get with the stronger combo, which is getting Alchemical Agent. And then for the hero points here, I go Village Idiot. This is kind of like the basic thing you always want to go is Village Idiot, just because most of the time you're critting. Very few times where this isn't optimal, but usually even if it isn't optimal, will still help a lot. So that's why Village Idiot is just usually the pick everyone goes. Then we go max crit damage, and then we go max HP and ward. This is for better survivability. And then I go spell cooldown in the rest of the points. This is just so I can spam my spell more. You could go more in crit chance for more critting. Status effect damage wouldn't do anything since we're not doing Alchemical Agent or any dot stuff. And then action skill cooldown wouldn't do too much since we have Blood of the Fallen. It still somewhat help, but definitely not needed at all. And I've found a problem with cooldown. I hope you guys enjoyed the build video. It's really fun to make, and using a lot of new tech I've learned about recently. This made it really fun to do. This definitely is not peak DREADWIND. That goes to Alchemical Agent, but it is fun, which is what I care about here. Again, the save file will be found in my Discord, and if you haven't, make sure to like and subscribe. I hope you guys enjoyed this build, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.